Close your eyes for a moment. Can you hear the faint crackling voice of Om Kalthoum drifting slowly from a wooden radio on a neighbor's balcony? Can you smell the sweet, earthy smoke of roasted sweet potatoes mingling with the cool breeze of a 1980s evening in Egypt? Welcome back to a time when our lives were simpler, our hearts were more open, and our streets felt like one massive, extended living room. Today, we are going to take a deeply nostalgic journey back to the 1960s, 70s, and 80s. We will uncover 20 everyday things that were completely normal in our beautiful Egypt back then, things we did without a single second thought. Yet, if you tried to do any of these things today, they would be considered strictly forbidden, highly illegal, or completely absurd by modern society. As we walk down this dusty memory lane, pay close attention, because the very last memory we share might just bring a tear to your eye and remind you of the ultimate beauty of our shared childhood. Let us turn back the clock together. Back in those golden decades, time seemed to flow entirely differently. There was no rush, no digital clocks dictating our every move, and no smartphones distracting us from the present moment. We knew the value of waiting, the joy of deep patience, and the unmatched beauty of genuine human connection. Modern society often tries to tell us that we lived in a poorer time, lacking the incredible technology and medical advancements we have today. But you and I know the absolute truth. We were vastly richer. We were rich in empathy, rich in trust, and rich in the kind of unfiltered, raw experiences that made us feel deeply alive. The rules of life were not written in strict legal codes or health manuals. They were written in the unspoken social contracts of our neighborhoods. We took risks that seem terrifying today, but those very risks gave us a sense of unparalleled freedom. As we explore these 20 forgotten realities, remember that we are not just talking about old habits. We are talking about the very soul of an era that shaped who we are today. An era where the Egyptian spirit was vibrant, fearless, and deeply connected. Let us start by remembering the heavy, rhythmic clanking of the yellow and red trams winding their way through the busy streets of Cairo and the coastal roads of Alexandria. In the 1970s and 1980s, it was a completely normal sight to see dozens of young boys and men hanging casually off the back bumpers, clinging to the sides, or even sitting triumphantly on the roof of the moving tram. There were no closed doors, and nobody shouted at you to get off for your own safety. The ticket collector would just smile and try to navigate through the sea of bodies. We felt the cool Mediterranean breeze on our faces in Alexandria, completely fearless, embracing the thrill of the ride. Mothers did not panic, and the police simply looked the other way, considering it just a part of everyday youth. Today, doing such a thing would instantly get you arrested, and society would view it as an unthinkable, reckless hazard. But back then, it was just our way of getting to school or the beach when our pockets were empty and the tram was too full. It was a beautiful, chaotic freedom that taught us balance and independence, a dusty adventure we will never forget. Let us move on to something that is almost impossible to imagine in today's health-conscious world. Picture the dense blue haze that used to fill every public space in Egypt. In the 1970s and 80s, smoking the local Cleopatra cigarettes was a ritual woven into the very fabric of daily life. You could smoke absolutely everywhere. People lit up inside crowded cinemas while watching a movie, inside government offices while signing official papers, on public buses, and even in hospital waiting rooms. I am sure you remember the smell of tobacco mingling with the scent of roasted peanuts in the movie theater. Ashtrays were heavy glass centerpieces in every living room, and offering a cigarette to a guest was a sign of true Egyptian hospitality. It was considered a symbol of maturity and deep thought. Today, smoking in enclosed public spaces is strictly forbidden by law, and the idea of lighting a cigarette next to someone on an airplane seems completely absurd. But in our time, that shared smoke was a way to start a conversation, a moment of connection between strangers, and just a normal backdrop to the beautiful, noisy theater of our daily lives. And now, let us think back to the kitchen and that unmistakable, rhythmic pumping sound of the brass kerosene stove, known to all of us as the babauer. Before modern gas stoves became common in every apartment, the babauer was the beating heart of the Egyptian home. Mothers and grandmothers would pump it vigorously until the blue flame roared to life, filling the air with the sharp, distinct scent of kerosene. We used it to cook huge pots of foul medams overnight, to warm up bath water on cold winter mornings, and to brew the perfect cup of heavy dark tea. Having an open, highly flammable kerosene fire indoors was completely normal, even with little children running around the tiny kitchen. Today, fire safety regulations and modern convenience have made the babauer obsolete and practically illegal to use indoors due to the obvious dangers. Yet looking back, there was a strange, comforting warmth to its roaring sound. It was the sound of a mother preparing a meal with love, the sound of early morning routines, and a testament to how we made do with what we had, finding joy and warmth in the simplest and most hazardous of household items. Another incredibly common sight that would cause a massive neighborhood scandal today was keeping live poultry right on your apartment balcony. In the middle of bustling cities like Cairo or Alexandria, it was perfectly normal to wake up to the loud crowing of a rooster living on the fourth floor. Families would buy live chickens, ducks, and sometimes even a pair of rabbits, keeping them in wooden crates on the balcony to fatten them up for a special Friday lunch or the holy month of Ramadan. Our mothers would feed them leftover bread soaked in water, completely unbothered by the noise or the mess. The balcony was not just a place for ornamental plants. It was a mini agricultural extension of our lives. If you tried doing this today, your neighbors would immediately call the municipality, citing health codes, hygiene violations, and noise complaints. City living has become so sterilized and separated from the source of our food. But back in those golden days, having those birds on the balcony meant your family was resourceful, providing fresh food for the household and keeping a beautiful connection to our agricultural roots right in the concrete jungle. Let us drift back to the neighborhood corridors, where the concept of privacy was completely different from what it is today. Back in the 1960s and 70s, leaving the front door of your apartment wide open all day long was the standard way of life. The door was only closed when it was time to sleep. Neighbors would casually walk in without knocking, carrying a plate of freshly baked cake, or just stopping by to chat while drinking tea. Children would run freely from one apartment to another, and you never knew whose living room you would end up eating lunch in. There was an immense, unbreakable circle of trust. Today, we live behind heavy steel doors, with multiple locks, peepholes, and security cameras, viewing everyone outside our walls with deep suspicion. The idea of leaving your front door ajar for the world to see inside is completely unthinkable and practically dangerous in modern times. But that open door was the ultimate symbol of community. It meant you were never truly alone, that your neighbors were an extension of your family, and that the beautiful, chaotic life of the Egyptian street seamlessly blended with the warmth of the home. Do you remember the magnificent street weddings? Whenever someone in the neighborhood got married, the families would erect a massive, colorful fabric pavilion, known as a saradek, right in the middle of the street. They would block the entire road from one end to the other, stringing up hundreds of bright red and yellow light bulbs across the balconies. The music of a live local band would echo through the entire district until the early hours of the morning. Traffic had to find another route, and nobody complained. Instead, people leaning from their windows would clap and throw sweets, celebrating with the family. It was a communal joy. Today, blocking a public road without a government permit is entirely illegal and would result in immediate fines and the arrival of the police to dismantle the tent. We are now forced to celebrate in expensive, sterile hotel halls. But the saradek was where the true soul of the community shined. Rich and poor sat side by side on wooden chairs, drinking cold sherbet, sharing a moment of pure happiness, that belonged not just to the bride and groom, but to the entire street and everyone who lived on it. Let us talk about the beautiful chaos of Eid mornings and the small, brightly colored fireworks we called bim. As children, we would save up our small allowance, run to the local street vendor, and buy handfuls of these tiny explosives. We were barely 7 or 8 years old, completely unsupervised, wandering the streets and throwing these fireworks right at the feet of passing neighbors, just to hear the loud pop and smell the distinct scent of gunpowder in the air. Older folks would pretend to be startled, laughing and shaking their heads at our mischief. Today, selling such items to young children is strictly prohibited, and the idea of kids running around with miniature explosives would terrify any modern parent. Safety rules and strict regulations have made the classic bim a thing of the past. But in those days, the sound of those fireworks was the official soundtrack of the holidays. It was a time of immense freedom, where the streets were our playground, and the community watched over us with a forgiving eye, knowing that the innocent joy of childhood was worth a little bit of noise and a cloud of harmless smoke. Think back to the scorching summer afternoons in the city, when you were walking home from school, exhausted and deeply thirsty. On almost every corner, there was a public water dispenser known as a sabil or a clay zier, and later on, the bright orange plastic cooler. Tied to it with a small chain was a single aluminum or plastic cup. Everyone who passed by, regardless of their social class, age, or background, would drink from that exact same cup. We would wipe the rim with our sleeve, fill it with cold water, drink deeply, and leave it for the next thirsty stranger. The thought of bacteria or viruses never crossed our minds. In today's post-pandemic world, drinking from a communal cup left on the street is considered a massive health hazard, totally unacceptable, and highly unhygienic. Yet, that shared cup was a profound symbol of our shared humanity. It was an act of ongoing charity, a promise that no one in an Egyptian neighborhood would ever go thirsty. It connected us to each other in the most basic, elemental way, proving that we were all part of one large family, drinking from the same well without an ounce of fear or hesitation. Let us remember the sight of an entire family riding a single motorcycle or a vintage Vespa. It was a scene you could spot on any busy bridge or street in Cairo. The father would be driving, gripping the handlebars with a serious expression. Sitting right in front of him on the fuel tank would be the youngest child, holding on tightly. Behind the father was another older child, and finally, the mother sitting gracefully side saddle at the very back, holding the groceries, with her dress billowing in the wind. 5 human beings balancing perfectly on 2 wheels, completely without helmets or protective gear, navigating the chaotic traffic with incredible skill. Today, traffic laws strictly forbid such an act, imposing heavy fines for riding without a helmet or overloading a motorcycle. It is considered wildly irresponsible and dangerous. But for families in the 1970s and 80s who could not afford a car, that Vespa was their trusted chariot. It brought them to the beach in Alexandria, to family visits on Fridays, and to the parks. It was a beautiful display of family unity, holding on to each other through the bumpy roads of life. Now, let us walk into a 1980s classroom where the authority of the teacher was absolute and unquestioned. It was completely normal for a teacher to carry a thick wooden ruler or a thin bamboo stick. If you forgot to do your homework, talked out of turn, or failed a test, you would have to hold out your open hands to receive a sharp smack. The famous saying among parents when dropping their children off at school was, "You have the meat and we have the bones," meaning the teacher had full permission to discipline the child however they saw fit. Today, physical discipline in schools is entirely illegal, highly forbidden, and could cost a teacher their career and lead to severe legal consequences. The modern approach focuses entirely on gentle parenting and psychological support. But back in those days, we did not view it as trauma. We viewed it as a stern lesson in respect and responsibility. That fear kept the classroom perfectly quiet, forced us to memorize our lessons by heart, and instilled a deep, enduring respect for our educators that we carried with us for the rest of our lives. Do you recall the melodic, echoing call of the roba bekya man walking down the narrow alleys in the late afternoon? He pushed a heavy wooden cart, calling out for old clothes, broken radios, or rusted pieces of metal. We did not throw away anything of value back then. Instead, we would run out to him with our old shoes or glass bottles, not for money, but for trade. In exchange for our junk, he would give us a handful of brightly dyed fluffy baby chicks, or a stick of pink cotton candy, or a sweet sugar rooster on a stick. It was the original magical recycling system of our childhood. Today, unregulated hawking and informal bartering in the streets are heavily restricted by municipal laws, and people just throw their old items into modern plastic garbage bins or sell them online. The charm of the roba bekya cart is gone forever, but that man taught us the true value of things. He showed us that nothing was truly worthless, and that a broken iron could magically be transformed into a living, chirping pet, or a moment of sugary delight, teaching us resourcefulness and joy in the simplest of street corner transactions. Let us take a moment to smell the unforgettable scent of wet dust on a hot summer evening. In the late afternoon, as the intense Egyptian sun finally began to set, shop owners and grandfathers would bring out a long rubber hose and begin spraying the unpaved streets in front of their homes with fresh water. The goal was to settle the thick dust and cool the hot air before bringing out the wooden chairs to sit and drink tea. The earth would soak up the water, releasing a deep, comforting, earthy fragrance that signaled the end of the working day. Today, using precious tap water to spray the streets is completely illegal and carries heavy environmental fines due to severe water conservation laws. We are taught to save every drop, and the streets are now covered in solid, unyielding asphalt. But back then, spraying the street was a daily ritual of purification and hospitality. It was the way we prepared our neighborhood for the evening gathering, a sign that the neighborhood was ready to welcome friends, share stories under the streetlights, and enjoy the cool, gentle breeze of a peaceful summer night together. Think about the classic family road trips to Alexandria or the beaches of Agami in the 1970s. The ultimate joy for a child was not sitting in a secure car seat, but tumbling into the spacious trunk of a Peugeot 504 station wagon. Parents would fold down the back seats, throw in a couple of heavy cotton blankets, and all the cousins would sit facing the rear window, watching the cars behind us. There were no seat belts, no airbags, just the bumpy rhythm of the desert road and the smell of sandwiches prepared for the journey. We would wave at strangers in other cars, laughing as we rolled around with every sharp turn. Today, traffic safety regulations make it highly illegal to have passengers riding unrestrained in the cargo area of a vehicle. The idea of children bouncing around without seatbelts is a modern parent's worst nightmare. But in our memories, that trunk was a magical clubhouse on wheels. It was an adventurous space where we made up games, sang old songs, and watched the landscape roll away behind us, feeling completely safe in the hands of our fathers, driving us toward the summer sun. Let us revisit the area right outside the school gates when the final bell rang. We would rush out, clutching our few piasters, heading straight for the street food vendors. There was the man pushing the wooden cart filled with hot, roasted sweet potatoes, the vendor selling pickled carrots and cucumbers from large glass jars, and the cart serving koshery in communal metal bowls that were simply rinsed in a small bucket of water before being handed to the next child. We ate everything without a single thought about hygiene certificates or health inspections. Today, selling unregulated, uncovered food to children outside schools is forbidden by strict municipal health codes, and modern parents pack sanitized, sterile lunchboxes. But the truth is, that street food was the most delicious thing we ever tasted. It tasted like freedom, like childhood, and like the vibrant energy of the Egyptian street. Those vendors were like a second set of parents, knowing us by name, slipping us an extra piece of sweet potato, and feeding our hungry souls before we made the long walk back to our beloved homes. Let us travel to the agricultural roads that connected the beautiful villages and towns of the Delta and the South. If you missed the bus, or simply wanted to save a few coins, you would stand by the side of the road and wave at a passing pickup truck or an agricultural tractor pulling a large wooden cart. The driver would slow down, and you would just jump into the back, joining 5 or 6 complete strangers sitting on sacks of flour or bundles of clover. There was no exchange of money, just a polite greeting of peace be upon you. Today, hitching a ride in the back of a commercial truck is illegal for safety reasons, and the deep suspicion of strangers makes the idea of jumping into an unknown vehicle absolutely terrifying. We are taught to trust no one, but back in those days, the road belonged to everyone, and so did the responsibility of helping a neighbor on their journey. It was a testament to the profound, unspoken trust that existed between Egyptians. We were all travelers on the same dusty road, sharing stories, sharing the wind in our faces, and arriving safely through the kindness of a total stranger. Think back to the local neighborhood pharmacy, known to all of us as the Saidalia. The pharmacist was not just a person who handed over sealed boxes of pills. He was the primary doctor, the therapist, and the trusted chemist of the street. If you had a fever or a terrible cough, you did not go to a hospital. You went to the pharmacist, described your symptoms, and he would go into his back room to mix a special concoction just for you. He would crush tablets, mix syrups, and hand you an unlabeled brown glass bottle of medicine, all without a single doctor's prescription. He would even give injections right there over the counter. Today, medical laws strictly forbid pharmacists from prescribing medication, mixing unregulated formulas, or giving injections without proper medical authorization. It is considered extremely dangerous. Yet in the 1970s and 80s, the local pharmacist was the guardian of our health. He knew our families, our histories, and he cured our ailments with a mixture of medical knowledge and deep compassion, saving us money and giving us comfort when we needed it the absolute most. Let us drift back to the autumn evenings in the countryside or the edges of the city. As the harvest season came to an end, farmers would gather the leftover rice straw into massive piles and set them on fire right in the open fields. Sometimes, even in the city, the neighborhood guard would gather the fallen leaves and paper trash and burn them on the street corner to keep warm. The air would fill with that thick, smoky scent, a smell that meant winter was fast approaching. We would stand around the fire, rubbing our hands together. Today, open burning of agricultural waste is fiercely banned by environmental laws because it causes the notorious black cloud that suffocates the city. It is a major health hazard and a punishable offense. But when we were young, we did not know about carbon emissions or air quality indexes. That fire was a signal of the changing seasons, a gathering point for the night guards and the local workers, and a primitive, beautiful way of cleaning the earth to prepare it for the next harvest, leaving us with a lingering scent of sweet nostalgia deeply embedded in our heavy winter coats. Now let us remember the magical, frustrating art of recording music directly from the radio. In the days before the internet, if you wanted to hear your favorite song by Abdel Halim Hafez or the latest pop hit, you had to wait for the weekly broadcast. You would sit cross-legged on the carpet, your finger hovering nervously over the red record button of your bulky cassette player, waiting in total silence. The second the song started, you pressed down hard. The biggest tragedy was when the radio host decided to talk over the beautiful instrumental intro, or worse, cut the song off before the end. Pirating music by recording from the radio was entirely normal, and absolutely everyone did it. Today, intellectual property laws and digital streaming make this concept obsolete, and technically a strict form of copyright infringement. But that tape, filled with static, radio jingles, and the sudden voice of your mother shouting in the background, was our most prized possession. We worked hard for our music. We curated it with infinite patience, and we listened to those cassettes until the brown magnetic tape literally snapped from pure love. Let us return to the very center of the neighborhood streets, the ultimate playground of our youth. Every afternoon, the wide asphalt roads would transform into a grand football stadium. We would place 2 large bricks on either side to mark the goal posts, take off our shoes, and play barefoot until the sun went down and our feet were black with dust. When a car occasionally needed to pass, someone would shout out loud, and the entire match would freeze. We would pick up the bricks, let the driver pass, and immediately resume the game. Today, playing in the middle of a main street is illegal, incredibly dangerous, and practically impossible due to the massive number of speeding cars and intense urban crowding. Kids now have to pay for enclosed artificial turf fields, but the street football of the 1980s was a free, wild expression of youth. It taught us teamwork, resilience, and how to negotiate the rules of the game without a referee. Those bruised toes and scraped knees were our medals of honor, earned on the beautiful, dusty battlegrounds right beneath our parents' balconies. Finally, let us remember the beautiful morning ritual of the milkman, known to all of us as the Laban. Very early in the morning, while the city was still asleep, he would ride his bicycle through the neighborhood, dropping off fresh, raw milk in heavy glass bottles right at our doorsteps. There was no fear of anyone stealing the bottles, and no worry about pasteurization dates. Our mothers would immediately pour the white liquid into a large aluminum pot and boil it on the stove. We all remember watching the milk closely, waiting for that terrifying second when it would suddenly rise and boil over. The best part was the thick, rich layer of cream, the eshta, that formed on top once it cooled down. Today, delivering unpasteurized raw milk in reusable glass bottles without strict factory seals and health inspections is banned in many places due to the fear of bacteria and contamination. We buy our milk in sterile cardboard boxes that last for months. But that morning delivery was a deep connection to the land. It was real, wholesome nourishment, delivered with trust and boiled with a mother's endless love, a simple routine that anchored our days. As we reach the end of our journey, it becomes profoundly clear that we do not simply miss the dangerous kerosene stoves, the dusty streets, or the loud firecrackers of our youth. What we truly mourn, and what we deeply long for, is the version of ourselves that existed in those fleeting moments. We miss the boundless energy of our youth, the undeniable sense of community, and the innocent trust we had in our neighbors and our world. The modern world has given us safety, efficiency, and endless rules to protect us, but it has quietly stolen the raw, unfiltered poetry of our daily lives. These 20 forbidden things were the beautiful imperfections that made our memories so incredibly precious. If this journey brought a warm smile to your face, please subscribe to our channel and leave a like on this video, as it helps us keep these precious memories alive. Now, I want to ask you, my dear friend, which of these 20 memories touched your heart the most? And what is one rule from today that you wish did not exist back then? Please share your personal stories in the comments below, and let us keep the spirit of our beautiful past alive together.